So you want to main Hera? Well, you've come to the right place. Hi gods, in this video I'll be teaching you everything you need to know about Hera for SMITE Season 7. In this guide, we're exploring SMITE's Greek mage, Hera. We'll be going through Hera's abilities, combos, attack cancelling, item builds, counters, what not to do, and general tips. You can apply this guide to all game modes. SMITE has classified Hera as an average god, and I find her easy to average. She's pretty simple once you get the hang of it. Before we begin, why do you want to main Hera? Hera's pros: strong in team fights, hard to focus with her ultimate active, strong crowd control, has a personal tank. Hera's cons: easy to focus with her ultimate inactive, not the best at escapes, vulnerable early game, heavily depends on her ultimate. My name is Teeds. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe and click the bell for more SMITE videos. If you have any of your own tips and tricks that I have not mentioned in this video, feel free to comment them down below. With that, let's go through Hera's abilities. The description for these abilities refer to Argus quite a few times. Argus is her fourth ability, her ultimate, which is her defender. Argus basically acts as a pest and will attack and defend Hera. Okay, so Hera's passive, commanding presence. Each time Hera deals damage to gods with her abilities or basic attacks, her ultimate cooldown is reduced by 1 second. Divine Shroud, her third ability, is also reduced by 0.33 seconds. If her ultimate, Argus, is active, Argus is instead healed. Hera's first ability, Royal Assault. Ability type, AoE with a 10-second cooldown. Damages enemies in a cone in front of her before opening a portal for Argus to attack through with his hands. Enemy minions hit in the first cone are knocked into Argus's path. If both of Argus' fists connects with an enemy, it will deal 15% extra damage. This is Hera's main damaging ability. Hera's second ability, Polymorph. Ability type, line with a 14-second cooldown. Enemies hit by this ability take damage. If this ability hits an enemy god, it will turn them into a monster. This means they will not be able to use basic attacks or abilities. This will affect any enemies in the path of this ability. When fully ranked, it will last for 2 seconds. This is Hera's main crowd control ability. Hera's third ability, Divine Shroud. Ability type, shield and buff with a 16-second cooldown. This ability grants Hera a shield from damage. It will also grant her temporary movement speed that lasts as long as the shield remains. If Argus is active, Argus will deal radiant damage and move faster. The shield will last for 5 seconds. You will gain 15% increased movement speed, and this is Hera's main escape and defense ability, as well as the main damaging ability for Argus. Ultimate, Argus the Defender. Ability type, AoE with a 90-second cooldown. The ultimate will summon Argus at a location. Summoning Argus on top of enemies will damage and knock them up. Argus will attack the closest target. You can control where Argus moves by refiring the ability onto an enemy or an objective. If Argus already has a target, he will instead be recalled to you. When recalled, Argus will defend Hera and attack anyone that is close to you. Argus has a hit chain that will begin with a normal basic attack into a ground circle which will slow enemies by 20% for 1.5 seconds. His last animation will be a line attack, which helps against enemies who are a little out of range. Argus will last until he dies, or 40 seconds if he survives everything. During the first 5 levels, I recommend ranking them up in this order. At level 1, her first ability. At level 2, her second ability. At level 3, her third ability for escapes and defense, or her first ability for increased damage. At level 4, her third ability or first ability, depending on what you picked up before. And at level 5, her ultimate. After that, I would prioritize Hera's first ability for damage and clear, her ultimate or second ability for crowd control and damage. For beginners or those who are getting a feel for Hera, I recommend prioritizing her ultimate over her second ability. If you're more experienced, it depends on your playstyle or situation. Focusing on her second ability will mean more damage and longer crowd control. Then her third ability last. Next, attack cancelling. Attack cancelling cancels the animation of an action. In turn, this will increase the damage output. Instead of wasting time on an animation that does nothing, you will instead deal more damage. This is not mandatory to do, however with Hera, her passive does benefit from Hera using abilities and basic attacks. I recommend to have all of her abilities at least on quick cast. For her first ability, as soon as you basic, use her first ability, and as soon as her first ability is fired out, use her basic. For her second ability, As soon as you basic, use her second ability and basic again, just like the first ability. Next, we have combos. Before we get into combos, there are things that we need to keep note of. Hera's ultimate is situational, but it can be used well in combos. Her third ability is your main defense ability. However, the movement speed can be useful for chasing down enemies or moving from point A to B. Her third ability also grants Argus more damage and increases his speed, which means he can catch up to enemies faster. Remember that using her abilities and basic attacks will lower the cooldown of Argus and heal Argus if he's active. Her third ability also benefits from this, which also can help in clutch situations. In team fights, I recommend placing Argus down as soon as you can. This can really turn the fights into your team's favor. Placing him down on a bunch of enemies or the back line is the best position for Argus, or even just having him tank the damage so your tanks can survive longer is really good as well. Basic attack as much as you can during these fights for reduced cooldowns and Argus heals. Now the combos. 2 and 1. 4, 2, 1. You can also use Argus at the end of the last two combos, however I find that the knockup really sets up your combos. Other than that, if you do use Argus at the beginning, they will also be taking damage from Argus while taking damage from your abilities. Remember that Argus does have an AoE slow on the second hit, so that will really help landing your abilities. All in all, these are just a few combos. Hera is very flexible with combos and Argus is a situational use, but your main combo will be 2 and 1 with basics. Third ability and Argus depends on the situation. Argus can also be used to kill secure targets that are a little bit far away. Next, builds for Hera. The builds in this video is just a general build that you can use. You will always have to adjust builds depending on the situation and what you need to counter. Builds can also change depending on what game mode you're playing. A general build that you can use and that is being used by players ranked in Masters is Mage's Blessing, Tier 1 Spear of Desolation or Tier 1 Divine Ruin. If you're up against someone who heals, pick up Divine Ruin first. Shoes of Focus, finish Spear of Desolation or Divine Ruin. Depending on what you did not pick up, go for Divine Ruin or Spear of Desolation, Soul Reaver, Obsidian Shard or Charon's Coin, replace Mage's Blessing for Chronos Pendant. I suggest picking up Divine Ruin because I believe it's one of the two items that offer flat pen and I find flat pen important for Hera. For relics / actives, I suggest Purification Beads and Aegis Amulet. Next, counters. Enemies with high mobility can really easily escape Argus and Hera's damage. Be careful with your third ability when you're using it to chase. Enemies can bait you using your 3, leaving you with no escape and defense. Hera is very vulnerable without Argus. I suggest not adventuring too far from your team or safety nets when your ultimate is down. With that, make sure you have your area warded due to not having the best escape. Beads and Mashi's Cloak counter her crowd control. Slows counter Hera due to no mobility. Hera's clear is dangerous because she has to walk up to the first row of minions to maximize her clear output. As a beginner, I suggest waiting for the enemy to clear first so you're not in the path of their abilities. When clearing, make sure the coast is clear in case enemies plan to gank you. Enemies who know how Hera works most likely will wait for Hera to clear first so they can damage her. What not to do as Hera. Do not put yourself in danger just to clear the minions, you can just wait for them to come closer. Do not only use your shield to soak damage, there are multiple uses for your shield. Do not rely too much on your shield. Just because you have a shield does not mean you should be in enemy range. And lastly, general tips. Hera's second ability can also help clear minion waves. This is a safer alternative. If enemies are right on you, such as assassins, placing Argus right on top of you can turn the fight in your favor or help you escape. When summoning Argus, I recommend to summon him on top of enemies as it will knock them up. He will also spend less time running towards the enemies, giving them less time to escape. Remember that pressing your ultimate again will recall Argus. Do this when you are in trouble with enemies focusing you, especially since you do not have the best escape. Remember, Argus does have a CC when he uses his second basic attack. Remember that you can control Argus on who he targets. In teamfights, I usually focus on the most vulnerable and problematic. I really try to focus Argus on the ones who are very squishy, who are dealing the most damage because they will have trouble if Argus is on them. Argus can also be used to bait escapes. While your third ability is your main escape, your second ability can be used to buy time to escape. Charon's Coin, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, can help with mobility issues since the item grants movement speed. I suggest to always have Argus active in teamfights. And that is all for Hera's Season 7 guide. You may see that I'm remaking a lot of guides, and that is because so many things have changed since Season 7. For Hera specifically, her combos, some of her tips and builds have changed, which is why I made a new guide for Hera. I thank you very much for watching, subscribe and click the bell for more SMITE videos, like the video if you like Hera, and comment down below what SMITE God guide you'd like next. I hope to see you again for the next one. Bye!